Hi, my name is Ryan Walker. I'm Senior Mining Analyst at Echelon Capital Markets. Welcome to another installment of our Mining Q&A series. Today we have Scott Trebilcock, CEO of Core Mining, which is focused on advancing its 2 million ounce Imperial Oxide gold project in California. Scott, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Ryan, thanks for having me.
So I guess we'll jump right in. And in the world that we live in, first question, what is your current COVID situation? Operations are running. Did you guys ever have any personnel test positive, anything like that?
Yeah, no, knock on wood, we've been lucky with no positive tests. We took action, closed our corporate office pretty early in the piece along with the BC lockdown, but British Columbia kept exploration and mining as an essential service. So we were able to keep doing our FG drill program up in the Caribou region of British Columbia. And our chief operating officer, Mark Leduc, being based in the US, was able to interact and keep managing his team down in Denver, Colorado on the engineering side, who eventually just worked from home to deliver the PEA. And really hasn't had much impact other than, a lot of Zoom calls and a lot of sitting in my basement working away. But, we need the U.S. to open up, and particularly California government offices, as we move towards submitting our permitting application for Imperial. So okay. I'd say an impact is coming if we don't see California open up in 2 or 3 months here.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear everybody's doing well and are healthy. So we'll just jump right into it. You mentioned at the PEA, that was kind of the big news of late. Maybe if you could just take us through the high-level highlights there.
Yeah, so the thing I loved about Imperial when I joined Core Mining was just it's what you want in a mining project. It's got a great location and it's simple across the board. So we're proposing a run-of-mine heap leach, so nice, simple processing. It's got a very similar scale of operations to the nearby Mesquite mine, so we have a really good idea what the costs are. Pre-production capital was estimated at $142 million. For that, you get close to 150,000 ounces a year for 8 years. Saw it off with a bit of rounding. NPV for the project was $343 million. And I think when you look at the capital intensity, it puts it sort of right at the bottom of its peer group, being all the other U.S. gold developers, in Nevada and Idaho. So I think the project stands really tall economically. And given the great work done by Glamis and the project back in the 90s, I think it gives us a real leg up to skip the PFS, go right to permitting and start the clock ticking on the permitting process.
Okay. And the numbers were fantastic. And I think, soon after the PEA was announced, you announced investments by both Macquarie Bank and Eric Sprott. How did that come together? What attracted them? Obviously the project and managing, I guess, but how did that come to be? How did they get involved?
Yeah. Well, Macquarie approached Core actually right in 2018. And my understanding is they were backing a bidder for Mesquite, and their group lost. So they were already sort of ramped up on due diligence, in the region, in the gold belt, and they realized Core was down the road. So they came in I think November of 2018, right after Equinox closed on buying Mesquite, did 6 months of due diligence. So I know the two guys out of Vancouver that led that due diligence. Macquarie has a large U.S. infrastructure lending book that did a lot of the work. And I think that's important because it gives real validation from a third party that Imperial will be a mine. This isn't Core doing a spooky PEA to get some near-term share price. Like, this is going to be a mine, and someone else with some serious money thinks so. That was their first round of financing. That was in May of last year, about 12 months ago. Eric Sprott we brought in because we wanted to fund exploration across the other projects, and Macquarie was only interested in funding engineering, stakeholder engagement, and permitting of Imperial. Didn't care about upside, didn't want to go drill, didn't want to go stake ground. So we brought Eric in to fund all that excitement in the rest of the portfolio, to stake ground in Imperial, go make a big exploration play around it. He came in first in August. And then as we were rolling through this year, got the PEA out, Macquarie and Eric had expressed interest to, support more work in the company. And we did a second round of financing with them about 4 weeks ago.
Okay, great. So you mentioned exploration upside. Macquarie wasn't interested in Sprott, obviously. What are the plans at Imperial as far as exploration this year?
Yeah, so actually in the very near term, we're mobilizing. So just sort of stepping back. So we staked 20,000 acres of new claims that connects Mesquite to Imperial and over to the old Picacho mine, which was a Glamis heap leach mine run in, I think, 88 to 96. And it was a historic belt that was all staked up by Goldfields and Newmont when Imperial County had 4 heap leach gold mines in the 80s. So this was an exciting belt where people were looking for big deposits. So we were able to stake all the claims, create this big exploration play. We did a first round of geophysics on the Mesquite to Imperial part, early part of this year. I think we got some good response from the share price on releasing that, just after the PEA, the results from that work. And we could really see geophysics seems to indicate we have a good series of structures, which ultimately controls mineralization in this area, up towards Mesquite. So we're going back in to infill some of that geophysics. That team's mobilizing literally about as we speak. We're going to do some downstream sediments. And when I say stream, I mean, these dry desert washes, as they call them, where there's historic placer mining, just to sort of see which washes are most productive from a gold perspective. And then we're currently putting in an application to get drill pads and go out there and drill. And with timing of permitting, we'd expect we'd be mobilizing a drill in the fall to test some of those highest priority targets. So should see a string of news about mobilization, geophysics, then drill permits and drilling over the next 4 or 5 months.
Okay. And you mentioned a couple of previous operators on the project back in the 90s. The project got fairly advanced. Could you maybe talk about the permitting situation for investors?
Yeah, absolutely. So Glamis Gold, originally they actually bought the project from Goldfields that I said controlled the camp on what they thought was a small outcrop discovery. When Glamis drilled it, it got bigger and bigger and became a key priority for Glamis. They did a feasibility study in 96, moved into permitting thereafter, faced resistance really because of the Clinton administration-led environmental politics in California. During that time, unfortunately for them as well, gold price declined while they were going through permitting. And it all kind of culminated in 2002 when California implemented the backfill law, as people call it. And it's actually called SMARA, their Surface Mining and Reclamation Act, which requires backfilling of newly permitted open pit metallic mines. Gold was $250 an ounce. Pretty much every gold miner left California, and it wore a bad reputation to today from that time because of the stain left by sort of wasted investment by open pit miners. So fast forward to today, backfilling is great because it's a problem that can be solved with money. And you've seen the economics of our PEA. We can afford to backfill at anything down to $1,100 gold and still have a 20% IRR. So certainly at where we ran the PEA at $1,450, where you can backfill and say to the NGOs, shake your hand, congratulate them for protecting and having these great standards, and we're simply going to live to them. So I think that and strong community support from the existing mining industry in Imperial County are the two things we're leaning on to ensure we have a smooth as possible ride through the permitting process.
Yeah, I'd imagine the state and local government, in a post-COVID world, will not be turning their nose up at tax revenue very easily. So that's got to play well for you guys.
Yeah, it's sort of I feel a bit sort of backward when I say that sometimes. But COVID in some ways is a positive, certainly for those proposing industrial developments and job creation. Now, even before COVID, Imperial was facing about 15% unemployment. And I don't know if you caught the news, but Mesquite put out an update on their resources. I don't know, sometime in the last month. Been a bit of a blur, but it doesn't look like they've been successful in defining any new material that's going to extend the life of that mine. So sometime in the period we're permitting, they're going to have to be backing off mining and going to residual leaching. So, politicians in Imperial County are worried about that. They like the jobs because the jobs and the spin-off labor from all the services is a big tax base in the county. And I think, again, that's just another great tailwind to get a strong community support, which you need to permit any mine in the world in Imperial County.
Yeah. Well, what a boon that would be for you guys as well. Experienced, skilled workforce, just helping to reduce the startup risk. It's always an issue with a kind of a explore code developer company transitioning to production. We've seen many disasters in that regard. So to have have that skilled workforce behind you would be definitely
Yeah.
a big
Yeah,
plus. So,
yeah, certainly we've got a growing stack of resumes.
yeah. Well, that's good. Good. So, just back, I guess, jumping around a little bit, back to the exploration side at Imperial. Uh, the drilling this year that you plan to do upon permitting, I mean, would that result in an updated resource, do you think, or is that just more proof of concept of the strike extension?
Yeah, no, a new resource will be down the track. So we are going to permit quite a number of pads. I hadn't seen what they put in the actual final application, but we're going to permit enough ground so we can do do a bit of some met holes, some infill over the current resource, do some of the step outs on strike to the both east and west, and test all those targets that came out of the original geophysics. But we're also going to permit pads, out towards Mesquite, moving down what we call Mesquite West, which is sort of the western extent out of Mesquite, coming down that structural trend that we see on our ground. And we're going to, test some of those as well. So I think the first holes we're going to drill are going to be close to Mesquite. And then we'll do a 3 holes off Imperial. And we're trying to create some excitement around, a new discovery, a new upside to the material. I think we'll hold the more confirmatory technical drilling till next year. If you think about a 3-year timeline for permitting, we need to do our infill probably late next year to feed into a feasibility study to get it all lined up for to pursue project finance with Macquarie or another. I think we'll hold on. We're going to permit the pads, but we're going to focus on the real exploration side and finding some new mineralization.
Okay, and if I recall correctly, that kind of extension between yourselves and Mesquite, there's really not been a lot of historical exploration or drilling out there.
No, I mean, we can't forget back in the times, the prolific and all staked up, gold was $300 or $400. Everybody, you had an anomaly. They did, vertical RC drilling. Everything was cheap as chips. They didn't do a lot of IP geophysics or those types of surveys to look undercover and do blind drilling. It just wasn't money they spent. Imperial, Mesquite, and Picacho, the 3 deposits in the belt, all outcrop. So they were relatively easy to find and define. And then the companies just never spent a lot of effort looking under the sand and gravel cover that covers the rest of the trend. So with IP geophysics and those types of modern techniques, you can at least get a good idea where structure is. And just more like in Australia, where they're drilling under a lot of blind cover, you go in and use low-cost drill methods to test as much bedrock as you can.
Okay, so maybe if you could discuss the other California gold oxide project you have, Long Valley. What plans you have there, and maybe just a bit of a thumbnail sketch of that project for us.
Yeah, Long Valley is a great opportunity. It's an intact epithermal deposit with 1.7 million ounces. It's only been drilled on average to about 60 meters, so there's a little thin veneer of gold over a 3 by 2 kilometer footprint. It's wide open for step outs and continuing to grow that. So that's our highest priority target. We've done geophysics and soil sampling that says that's really low hanging fruit. So that's exciting target number 1. But as opposed to Imperial, which is fully oxidized, this deposit is an intact epithermal. So we've got oxide transition and sulfides, and the previous operator, Royal Gold, would just simply terminate when they hit sulfides regardless of grade. So we want to go back in and actually test some of the deeper sulfides for, ultra high grades, because that's the potential in these types of feeder systems. So we will do a few holes in that, but primarily we're going to step out and just continue to grow that 1.7 million ounces and increase the potential economics of that deposit, which is really shallow, lends itself well to backfilling, and I think could be a really exciting second leg to the stool of Core's portfolio.
Okay, great. And then turning to another project, I mean, earlier this week we saw some drill results out of the FG Gold project up in BC. a meter of ounce per ton material, definitely attractive. And I think that was kind of a proof of concept for you guys. Maybe if you could give us some color on that.
Yeah, exactly. So FG Gold, we're up now in the Caribou region of BC, right around Williams Lake. We're just to the south of Barkerville, a couple porphyry mines up there, Gibraltar and Mount Poly. So this is low elevation, road accessible. This isn't helicopters and crazy north. You know what you're, it's a place that with big mines nearby that you can mine and with known costs. So I think I like that aspect of it. What FG Gold is that it was actually found through a large golden soils anomaly and drilled again very shallowly into the rock group. It's a sedimentary package that's kind of plunging into a hillside, and they only ever drilled sort of the top, usually less than 100 meters of it, trying to find a bulk disseminated open pittable gold mine. It was drilled by several operators. There was actually underground adits put in to pull out bulk samples, which yielded ore that they actually shipped off and got processed, and they generated a few $1 million from this bulk sample they did underground. And so there's lots and lots of gold being generated in this system. But when they drilled it with hodgepodge drilling, they ended up with 0.8 grams per ton, which I would say, that's sub-economic in BC. Let's call a spade a spade. But like you started off with, the actual individual intercepts that make up that bulk disseminated resource will be, a whole bunch of 0.2, and then a big kicker of 10 to 30, and they blended all that together in the resource assessment, to sort of try to make a bulk disseminated deposit out of it. So our theory is that let's go back in, drill these high grade components and structures, see if we can connect them together, better understand the structural controls. It's a sedimentary package, so it's folding, so it's probably somewhat related to fold hinges and limbs, and try to redefine the grade of this deposit. So we're using wide diameter core, oriented core to understand structure, and we're doing metallic screens on anything over 0.3 because the deposit is nuggety. You get visible gold and coarse gold, and you got to use, metallic screens, which are expensive. Some previous operators didn't do very many of them, to really understand these high grade components. And we've already pulled from our first 2 holes 3 assays higher than anything drilled in the 300 holes in the deposit before. And that's simply from upgrading these assays with a good assaying technique and trying to look at these high grade structures. Plus, we discovered one new structure, a new mineralized vein below the existing mineralization. I think we pulled 10 meters of 3.9 grams. That's still only 200 meters. So I think there's lots more smoke that this thing can get a lot bigger and carry a better grade.
Okay, that's great. So, I mean, Imperial, fantastic project, but the rest of the portfolio seems just as compelling. And it sounds like you guys are doing some work on each of them. Can you maybe just to sum things up here for the interview, just in your mind, what are the main catalysts for the balance of the year? What's going to drive the stock?
Yeah, I really think it's the exploration side that's going to drive the stock. I mean, there's lots of value creation going through permitting to go from a 75 million Canadian company to a 490 million Canadian NPV of the project through the permitting process. Exciting, but in the near term, you're right. It's all about the drill bit. It's why Eric Sprotz put his money in. He wants to see us go drill a lot of these targets and generate as much noise around Core's assets as we can. So, coming up, we have 6 more holes in the metallic screens are underway at FG Gold. That drill then restarts in the back half of June. We'd like to drill another 5 to 10 holes, depends how long we run them and what we're seeing in the vein structures with the drill. That's another sort of 500 grand program. Then we have applications in for drilling, as we talked about, at both Long Valley and Imperial. Whichever one comes first, we'll drill first. Okay. And we'll start at $1 million and go up to potentially 2 across whatever pads get permitted on those 2 projects. And we got some good low hanging fruit at both, so I think it'll be very fruitful drilling. And then we've got follow up geophysics at Long Valley, which will generate a news release probably in the middle of the summer. So we're hoping to generate a constant stream of drill results for the rest of 2020.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, and we'll keep our eyes peeled for those. And it looks like gold is at least well supported for the next couple of years. So definitely look forward to some great results out of you guys. And and appreciate the time you took today for us. And yeah, looking forward to good things.
Yeah, great, Ryan. Thank you very much for your support, and it's been great being here today.
All right, great. Thank you very much.